Welcome back to Inside the Paddock. This is episode number 16. Today we're going to be recapping the Belgian Grand Prix. It was a yet another win for Red Bull and Max Verstappen, and pretty solid race. Lots of changing conditions, sprint weekend. So we got a lot to talk about. Um, yeah, today it's just going to be me and Kenji, guys. Tim is in Italy right now, so hopefully he's having a good time. But Kenji, you wanna what were your thoughts on this weekend?
I thought it was a very good weekend, to be honest. The sprint was kind of cool, but I still don't like it. But I thought that the rain, as always, like it did in Austria, brought a lot of intrigue to the sprint. So it was good to see. It was good to see, and especially with the race, it was a dry race, but even despite that, there was a bit of rain that came like during the middle of the race. So when that happened, that kind of brought out some, extra pace from McLaren, who loaded a lot of downforce, it seems like, onto their car. So a very intriguing race, a very intriguing weekend. Of course, if you're looking towards the front of the field to judge, I guess, the enjoyability of this race, we're probably disappointed because Verstappen won again. Surprise, surprise. But with that being said, I thought there was a lot of intriguing battles, a lot of racing further down the field, especially in the midfield. So yeah.
Yeah, running through the order, it was Verstappen first, Perez second, Leclerc third on the podium. Then it was Hamilton, Alonso, Russell, Norris, Ocon, Stroll, and Yuki Tsunoda to round out the top 10. Um, and for the sprint, it was slightly different. It was Verstappen, Piastri, and then I believe Pierre Gasly with a solid finish in P3 in the sprint. Um, but let's just quickly run through what Red Bull had this weekend. It was another dominant performance from Max Verstappen, starting sixth, but didn't really phase him at all. As we weren't surprised to see him quickly take back the lead. Incredible lap in qualifying on Friday. The sprint race, it was a little bit closer as he did get pole, but Piastri was able to pit right as the race started and ultimately passed him. But the McLaren had all sorts of issues in the first and third sector of this track, and we'll get into that later. And after that, he pulled away pretty comfortably. So another just a little bit more of a tricky weekend for Max, I guess, but he handled it very well as we expected him to.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much more to add. I mean, we're just kind of saying the same things with Red Bull at this point. They're just dominating the sport. And it's completely deserved, to be honest. Just even when Mercedes were dominating, like you have to appreciate the amount of, I guess, effort and their ability to develop a strong car, which I think Red Bull have kind of emulated this year. So it's the eighth win in a row for Max Verstappen. It breaks the record which Michael Schumacher had of 7 wins in a row. And he is now one off of Sebastian Vettel for the all-time record. That record was set in 2013. Yeah, just a dominant weekend. Charlie mentioned the pole lap. He took pole by 8 tenths of a second. The sprint, yeah, he did kind of make a mistake, which we don't usually see him make with the strategy, but just a dominant weekend. He took the lead back in the sprint on lap six. In the race, he took it back on lap 17, pulled 1.5 seconds on Perez immediately after overtaking him, and won by 23 seconds or 22.3 seconds. So, not much more to add except just a dominant weekend. There was a little bit of like a radio, kind of funny radio messages between Max and his engineer GP. What did you think about that, Charlie?
I remember what was that? I guess it was qualifying on Friday, right? I remember that. But Max was almost out, I believe, Q2. He very narrowly um, snuck by, and he was frustrated with his uh, engineer, and they kind of went back and forth a little bit. But
Yeah, I
is there
appreciate.
another one?
Yeah, there was like a couple during the race as well. I think Max was told to conserve his tires because he had, I forget which tire he started on, but his tire had a lot of degradation in the first stint, and later on in the race, GP came on the radio and said, please conserve your tires, Max, use your head a bit. And Max kind of shot back saying, well, if Perez isn't being told to do this or Checo isn't being told to do this, then I won't either. And GP was like, well, just listen to what I'm saying, Max, please. Respect my instructions. So it's a very, I don't know. A lot of people say, Max is being arrogant, but I think that's kind of what makes it fun in some ways. Just having a lot of this relationship between GP and Max. It's a lot of has a very good personality, if that makes sense, has a lot of character. And I appreciate that. With Ferrari, it seems like every weekend it says, we are checking, we are checking, we are checking. I'll get back to you on that. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. So with GP, who's obviously a very competent engineer, it's great to see some character in his interactions with Max. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And brings a lot of fun and humor to the race, which otherwise for Max Verstappen was kind of boring. He was just kind of overtaking everyone. Besides that moment he had on El Rouge when the rain started falling, his car kind of snapped out a bit. But yeah, otherwise from that, it was a dominant weekend for Max, and I don't have much more to add.
Yeah, and the sprint race was interesting. I assume he didn't pit immediately because I think he would have come out even further behind. I don't think he would have come out even in second place because of how the pit lane and Red Bull's right at the front, correct?
Right. So he
So he
started
would
on
have to
pole.
wait until everybody. He would have to wait a while for people to go through before he exits again. Whereas McLaren's going to be like halfway down. I still think Piastri probably would have come out in front, and maybe even more people. So
Yeah, it's a massive gamble because what happens if Piastri doesn't pit or someone else doesn't pit ahead of him? I mean, he'll be on the intermediates, but there wasn't any clear indication that the intermediates would be as strong as they were. If that makes sense. It's kind of what happened with Lewis a couple years ago in Abu Dhabi, that very controversial race where he didn't pit because he would have lost track position. It is a bit different, but in some ways it's also the same. If Max pits, he loses track position on a wet track, so one that's a bit harder to overtake on. And yeah, it's a bit of a gamble. So perhaps that's the reason why, but hindsight,
I think they made the right call probably.
I
They
think
know
they
they can play it safe with that call.
yeah, especially with like McLaren struggling on the straights this weekend. I think it was a calculated risk, and in this case, it worked out. It worked out well for Max Verstappen. So yeah,
The other driver, Sergio Perez, had a better weekend this time around. I guess third in qualifying. When the flag fell, started in second. Um, did his job against Leclerc, but Max is just locked in right now. So it is what it is. There was a good battle between him and Hamilton that Hamilton was penalized for during the sprint. And then he proceeded to fall through the field, and then we ended up seeing that he had like a hole in his side pod, so that's not really his fault that he fell so hard. But what do you think about that battle with Lewis, Kendi?
it was a weird battle because we don't usually see two cars of competitive pace racing each other in sector two, sector three, that kind of part of the spot. Usually the moves are done down the Kemmel straight or um, maybe even the pit straight. So it was a bit of a weird move. I felt like Checo did squeeze Lewis a bit, my opinion, but the problem is the apex on that corner is kind of far into that. It's closer to the outside of the track as it usually is. So in my opinion, it was more of a racing incident. Like if I had to put the blame, it would probably be like maybe 65-35 towards Lewis. But I agree that the 5 second penalty was still like justified. I do think though it was closer to like a racing incident than anything, just given the character of the corner. And I think probably it would have been better for Lewis to like wait because we saw how much Checo was struggling on those tires, especially closer to the end. And obviously the pace after the incident wasn't representative, but even before that, we saw how he was struggling to keep up with everyone else during the sprint race. Um, and he was just getting kind of stuck towards Lewis and all of those cars behind. So I think it would have been better for Lewis to have waited. And if he did, he wouldn't have gotten that penalty. But it is what it is. And at least Checo did better during the actual race itself. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it was I don't know, because I would like to see more drivers kind of try what Lewis tried and like make overtakes in parts of the track where you're not unusual places to pass. But like I don't know, I he it's weird because I think if Perez didn't get damaged, then he like I don't think Lewis really did anything wrong to like try it. But I don't know. It's just if you're not going to give him a penalty, then you kind of have to change how the driver ahead approaches like a corner where someone is almost halfway alongside you, like they've come up to the middle of your car. So it was close. I don't really have a hard take on it. Um, onto Ferrari. It was a podium again for the red Italian team. Leclerc took pole, but he lost the lead on lap one, which is kind of unfortunate. Couldn't see if he could battle with Perez at all. And then Sainz had the incident with Piastri. So do you want to get into that, or we can talk about Leclerc a little
Yeah, I think we can just kind of bunch them together. I mean, it was a kind of a better weekend, as you mentioned, for Ferrari. It seems like they had, I saw the statistic. I think that Ferrari had the second strongest engine on the grid, and as a result, they kind of do well in Spa because they have a big straight, obviously the chemistry, all of that stuff. So yeah, they did a bit better than I expected, to be honest. But I don't know, it's kind of a weird weekend as well. Disappointing for Sainz with that crash. It was good to see Leclerc back on pole. Obviously, I think he did the best he could during the race, just given the pace of that car or the pace of the Red Bull car, just too dominant. So I think P3 was the best he could do. And it's good that he got a sizable amount of points. It's 15 points in the Constructors' Championship. So, and they're now 5 points behind Aston Martin. So, pretty strong weekend for them. And I think they can probably lock in that P3 at this point, just given the pace that Aston Martin has had over the last few weekends. So on to Sainz. It's a weird crash because we've seen moves done into the source in previous years. Verstappen and Raikkonen comes to mind. I don't. I'll get this out of the way first. I don't think anyone should be penalized for the lap one incident because, first of all, it's a lap one incident, and we don't usually see people. The stewards usually give a lot more. I don't know what the word is, but flexibility, I guess, for those kind of crashes. But at the same time, I think Sainz kind of had a lot more to blame for, I guess, than most people gave him credit for. Because first of all, he walked up into a source, so that kind of automatically messed up his approach. And if you look at the footage, like he has a lot of space outside, and Piastri at this point is kind of side by side with him going into the source, so he is entitled to a lot of space. And I think putting the blame completely on Piastri isn't really fair given those circumstances. But what do you think, Charlie?
Yeah, I think it's more at fault with Sainz. I don't obviously Piastri couldn't really his race was basically over after that. Um, there's no reason. I don't know if Sainz really deserved a penalty, but I think it was his fault. You look at like the onboards, and and Sainz kind of jerks his car to the right for no real, like, without really like giving the respect to Piastri that he's there. And after that, Piastri has nowhere to go. I mean, he can't break back out and drift to the left. So he had to commit, and Sainz kind of just pinched him into the wall. So I mean, it is a racing, isn't it? I guess, but if you have to put blame on someone, I think it was Sainz. It's unfortunate for Piastri and for Sainz, I guess. Um, but yeah, I don't. It's just a weird because you could like Piastri. I don't think he could have avoided that because you could kind of see that that was going to happen for a while. Like you can see them; they're way too close, and they two cars can't go side by side that close to the wall, and so obviously something was going to happen. And uh, yeah, so I'm sure that there was no chance for Piastri to go anywhere.
Yeah, I think my question is like if Piastri is a bit older, he's a bit more experienced, does he try that move into a source? Because we've seen in years previous cars, I guess, go into each other at the source. I already mentioned Verstappen and Raikkonen from a couple years ago. Kind of a similar accident as well, where Max tried to move down into turn one of lap one, and Raikkonen kind of squeezed him out, and you know Verstappen got out of the race. So if Piastri is a bit more experienced, does he try that move? Does he kind of calculate and find out like an acceptable risk, or does he just kind of wait, I guess? But you also have to consider that McLaren would have struggled overtaking because of how slow they were on the straight. So that's also another consideration. But what do you think, Charlie? Is this more of like a move done out of inexperience or just kind of a recognition of how slow they were on the straights?
Yeah, I think he should have maybe in the with more experience he doesn't immediately think I'm going to go to the inside just because it obviously is going to be a little bit more dangerous to the inside, whereas the outside has. I think that's a very wide turn to like wide part of the track at that corner, and it's got runoff, and so you're going to be fine if you go to the outside. Obviously, he's starting on the inside line of the grid, um, but I think he made the decision, and then very quickly he was kind of locked in and couldn't really do anything. So yeah, just um, McLaren was a weird weekend in general for them. I don't know if Piastri really would have been able to do much in the race. Norris only barely kind of got into the points because of the rain. So
Do you want to talk about McLaren at this point, or should we wait?
yeah, I guess we should just go on to McLaren real quick.
Yeah.
So obviously Piastri, just in qualifying for that car, it was crazy, like insanely good in the second sector, but it wasn't good. And we saw that in the race that it was really bad in a straight line, which is basically a straight line. The entirety of sector three is pretty much flat out, and then obviously sector one with the Kimmel straight. So, but I mean, Piastri was going like a second faster than Mercedes in the second sector. It was crazy, but so in a shorter sprint race, yeah, he was able to keep P2. And he also had Gasly as a buffer. So um, great job by Piastri there.
Yeah, what that kind of like pace breakdown from McLaren told me was that I think they set up towards a wet race. I think that they assumed that Sunday would be wet.
I
And as a
agree.
result, yeah, because when it did rain, like Norris did good. Like he was able to overtake. I think it was like a Sargent during the rain. And we saw on those soft tires that he was on, his pace was extremely strong.
Yeah,
And with Saturday, as you mentioned, with the heavy rain that fell before the sprint, um, they were very strong as well. So just a bit
yeah,
unfortunate
and I think their car is good in the rain, just in general. Like I remember at Monaco, I think it rained at
Yeah.
Monaco. They were like the fastest car. Norris and Piastri were going like a second faster than anybody else. So obviously Monaco is a very different track than Spa, but like that car is pretty good in the rain. I think maybe they just gambled like, hey, if it's gonna rain, we may as well go all out and exploit our strength.
Mhm.
But yeah, good job by Norris to get back into the points. He kind of tumbled down the order at the start, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I was impressed by Piastri, and even when he took P2, he you kind of could tell that he wanted more, that he wanted to do it in an actual race, so to speak. So Piastri's had an extremely impressive season. He's had a phenomenal season, and yeah, I mean, eventually that podium will come, I think, and when it does come, I think he'll be, just inspire him to greater heights. I know it's a bit corny, but the point still stands. I think he has a very bright future, and maybe he might even move to Red Bull. I think there's been a couple rumors floating around on that end, so something worth watching.
yeah. They should be. I think they still have good pace. I don't think that car is like falling off. Zandvoort is next. They should be pretty good there. A lot of high, medium speed corners.
It's a very
So
downforce like track. Yeah,
yeah.
so Singapore they might even do good at too because of how many corners
Hmm.
are kind of like Monaco. But yeah,
Yeah. All right. Mercedes going back up the order. Hamilton P4, Russell P6. Um, yeah, just they're showing that obviously Russell didn't beat Alonso, but they're definitely the second best team I think right now, or at least they're gonna get second in the constructors. It's looking like, and good race for Hamilton. Obviously, the crash in the sprint kind of ruined that for him, but and I don't. I think Russell didn't get. Did he not get into Q3 again? I don't think he did.
I think I don't even remember at this point. Yeah,
Or maybe it might have been the sprint he didn't get into Q3. I don't know. It's too much going on.
yeah, it was a lot of action this weekend. So yeah,
But yeah, just another solid race for Russell. I know even if he did get into Q3, he was still further towards the back, I think. So I saw him make some good overtakes. I think he made like two down the pit straight, which is pretty impressive.
yeah. I mean, there's a bit of a quieter weekend for Mercedes. There was that incident in qualifying, I think it was, where they put Hamilton and Russell very close together, and Russell had to overtake Lewis down to Kemmel Straight, which kind of compromised his lap. And I think that might have been where he missed out on Q3 if he did. I don't know if you remember that, Charlie, but yeah, it was a very weird weekend, but still a lot of points. P4, P6. That's how many points is that? 20 points. So a good weekend, and I think Hamilton at this point is pretty set for P3 and the Drivers' Championship. So yeah, another strong weekend from Mercedes, and we thought they'd do well here because of the tricky conditions. I will say I did expect a bit more from George and Lewis, but P4 and P6 not a bad result at all. So yeah,
Aston Martin, I wouldn't say they're back, but solid weekend for them. Alonso P5, Stroll P9. Alonso just kind of did his thing. Uh, I don't know. It's such a weird team because they were so good at the start. Now they're just not that great. I don't know if it's that they used up all their kind of resources and they to build the car at the start of the season, but I don't really see their pace re-improving this year. It's just the vibe I'm getting from them, so they're kind of finished.
yeah, we speculated. I speculated last episode that it was kind of like they poured in all of their development time, like wind tunnel time, all of that stuff during the preseason, and that's why they're able to make such a big jump. And now they've kind of like fallen off because they don't have as much time anymore. But At the same time, though, they brought upgrades to Canada, so and we saw their pace kind of improve a bit. I did read that there was a general feeling within Aston Martin that their upgrades had put too much downforce on the car. So in some ways, those upgrades might have become downgrades, if that makes sense. But yeah, just a weird turn of events for Aston Martin, who at the start of the season we thought would be a consistent contender for the podium. Um, now P5 isn't bad. Alonso, I mean, I kind of predicted him to be P5 last weekend, so the fact that he was good to see. I mean, it was a tricky. Obviously, we had a lot of changeable conditions, so Alonso, with all of his experience, I think did pretty good in that. Yeah, I think 12 constructors points. You have to take it in terms of championship, and I think 12 points this weekend is still a very solid result for Aston Martin given the pace they've had lately. So yeah, not a bad weekend I think for Aston Martin, but still you'd love to see them move further up the field, kind of where they were at the start of the season.
Yeah. We already basically ran through McLaren. Good points in the sprint for them, and then Norris got seventh in the race. Moving on to Alpine, it was a weird weekend for them. They had their team principal, Otmar Safnauer or whatever. That dude, he's gone. I believe they're another guy, maybe their technical director or something. He's gone, and now all of a sudden they they have a good race. It's, I mean, yeah, it's good job by Alpine. I guess Ocon got eighth in the race, and then that's going to get him what, 4 points, and then Gasly got six in the sprint for getting third. Obviously, that was mostly on account of the. Obviously, he did a good lap in the sprint qualifying, but it was the pitting immediately that helped him jump over the cars like that whatever passed him and were ahead of him in the qualifying. So, but still a solid job by Gasly, and he did hold off Hamilton despite Hamilton having a penalty that never let Hamilton get past. So.
Yeah, it was a lot of good racing from two of them. I mean, we saw a lot of good overtakes. For example, one was Ocon making that move into Tsunoda at the end of the Kemmel Straight. We saw them run side by side through subsequent corners for a very long time until Ocon eventually got that move done. Even with Gasly making that move into Albon, I think it was into turn 14. That was also a good move as well. We don't usually see a lot of moves there, so it's kind of like a Lewis on Checo kind of thing, but Gasly made it work and fair play to him. That was a great move. So very impressed. Um, I mean, Alpine, I think they basically lost P5. I think McLaren have that pretty locked in at this point, given the pace jump they made. But taking what is it like? How many points did they get? Four, because Gasly
10,
finished outside of the points. But yeah,
10,
4 points.
10 for the weekend.
Oh, that's right, from the sprint. But yeah, 10 points from this weekend is a very good result, given that the fact that they've retired 4 straight times in the past 2 races. So, I mean, yeah, 10 points, it's a good result. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
yeah, 10 points.
at this
Yeah,
point, they're basically stuck in P6. The constructors, like, they're not catching McLaren at this point.
yeah. I don't think they're going to get caught by anyone either.
Mhm.
10 points is solid, but even on a bad weekend for McLaren, they still got more points than Alpine, and so did Aston Martin. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Obviously, they're going to need some new personnel, some new leadership at their team. But yeah, I think they're going to be all by themselves, kind of in that midfield. Tsunoda and AlphaTauri. Tsunoda was really good in the race this weekend. I'm not really sure what happened to him because I know he was running a lot higher than P10. But do you want to Can you fill me in on that, Kenji? Because I know he was up in like sixth or so. And
Yeah, he was like six, and then he pitted a couple times. So he would drop like places during the pit stops, and then he would always like come back up. He would always like run it back. So just, I guess it's just the pit stop pace,
yeah,
the pace during the pit stops, and as well that AlphaTauri is kind of, quite frankly, a bit dog trash. So not really much you can do on that end. So,
yeah,
but that was probably Tsunoda was one of my drivers of the weekend. I mean, he did incredibly well to get that AlphaTauri into the points. So yeah, I mean, we know how great of a driver he is this year, and I think he just kind of showed it again this weekend as well.
yeah. Definitely a great weekend for Sonoda. Um, a lot of people were saying that Ricardo had a horrible weekend, and it wasn't great, especially compared to Yuki. But um, well, yeah, I guess it really wasn't very good. I think about it because he almost got a point in the sprint, but that was because of the half the grid pitting one lap and then half the grid staying out. Um, and he was ahead of Tsunoda, I believe, at the start of the sprint, which allowed him to um, be in that position to get a point. But yeah, I think he still kind of got to get accustomed to the car.
Mhm.
I'm not discouraged by what we saw from Ricardo this weekend.
I mean, it's his second race in that car, so you
Yeah,
expect some kind of like he needs some time to get accustomed to, as you mentioned. So I thought his sprint was very good. I mean, yes, there was some like accentuating factors to his result, but even with that being said, taking P9 in tricky conditions is, you don't just get that if you're not a good driver. And we know Ricardo is, so eventually I think he'll be more on the pace of what Yuki has been doing. And yeah, just give him some time basically. I think it was a decent weekend. Not as good as it could have been, but still pretty okay, I guess.
yeah. Alfa Romeo, uh, they kind of impressed being that team right outside the points, 12th and 13th for those two drivers. Um, and to everyone's surprise, I think we all thought Williams would be that team, and they weren't. It was Alfa Romeo. The Ferrari engine did show some pretty decent pace this weekend. So still not a huge surprise, but yeah, I guess you'll take that for Alfa Romeo. No points, but still a pretty good job. And then we'll move on to Williams. Obviously, uh, pretty big disappointment this weekend, both for Albon and for even Sargent, because that car did seem to have some really good straight line speed.
Yeah, I think on the straight or on the Kemmel straight, they were like 12 miles per hour faster than everyone else. So very good speed on the straight, but it's just a problem of kind of, it's the reverse of what McLaren had, where they were good on the straights and bad in the corners, in my opinion, because just looking at the timing screens, like they just kept losing time in the corners, and the tire drag was very high as well. Had to pit multiple times. I think Albon pitted 3 times actually. So yeah, just big problems on that side of the car, and have to work that out, I guess. But on the straights, they're good. So we weren't wrong there, but yeah, just a bit of a disappointing weekend.
I think that they're best set up to get that seventh place in the constructors. You got Monza coming up; they should be pretty good there. So, and then our last team, we got Haas. I think in both qualifyings they really screwed up when when to send out their drivers, and they both like didn't get to do another lap. So maybe just a bad job by the team. I think Magnussen had a slightly better weekend than Hulkenberg, but not really anything to highlight. Um, yeah, you got anything else on this race, Kenji?
I mean, not really. I mean, with Haas, when they came to the race, I think they just had too much tire degradation as they've kind of had this year. It's kind of been their problem too. Like they'll do well in qualifying, and then in the race they'll just struggle because their tires fall off super quickly. So, kind of like a Ferrari problem from earlier this season. Yeah, I mean, they should figure out what's going on there. But yeah, not much more to add on this race. It was very good weekend, I think. Maybe like a 6 or 7 out of 10. But
Yeah,
I mean, with Max just winning, it's yeah, not much more to add there.
yeah. Obviously, the summer break is now here. We will be coming with a first half, a little bit over first half of the season recap when Tim gets back, and then we can discuss what we've seen from the teams in this first half of the year and what will come in the second leg. But now it is game time. So I've got some questions. I think Ken, you have some questions for me. Obviously, it's a little bit different without two people answering questions, but still should be some good trivia. So, what do you have for me this weekend, Kid?
So I prepared the higher lower game, and I think you prepared the grill to grid segment. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
Yeah. So we're kind of gonna we're just gonna do the games like we did with Tim and I, where we just kind of it's a bit of a different format though. I mean, I prepared one game, Charlie prepared another game, and we'll just see who performs better. So yeah, it's a bit of an abbreviated game session, like I said, because it's just me and Charlie today. So hopefully, when Tim's come back, we'll have some more game time questions. But otherwise, yeah, I think we should just get started at this point.
ready.
All right. So the higher lower game is a segment of our podcast where one of us picks a topic for the session and asks questions based on which driver has more of that thing. So this weekend or this week, I chose race entries. So I'm going to give you two drivers and you'll tell me who has more or who has entered more races. All right.
All right. Yep.
So who has entered more races? Fernando Alonso or Lewis Hamilton?
Right. Lewis been around since 2007, I believe, and Fernando won two championships before that. I know he's had a couple of years off thrown in there, but because I'm just gonna go with Alonso. I think it's got to be Alonso.
Fernando Alonso is correct. Yes. So he has 367 race starts. Lewis Hamilton has 322. So yeah, Alonso, I think his rookie season was 2003, I think. And then
Yeah,
Hamilton, you mentioned, was
yeah,
2007. Um, Alonso, yeah, he did take some time off after the McLaren Honda times. I think in 2019 he wasn't there, but he's one of the oldest. I think he's the oldest driver on the grid right now. He's like 40 something,
yeah,
or maybe.
surely.
Yeah. So as a result, he had more race entries. All right. So that was a bit of a warm up. So your next question is who has entered more races? Rubens Barrichello or Michael Schumacher?
Hello. All right. I don't really know when he started. I know though they were the teammates at Ferrari for a while, and then Barrichello was with Honda, and he was at Braun, right? But I don't know if what happened to him after that. I'm gonna and then Schumacher came. I'm gonna go Barrichello though.
So Barrichello was correct. Yeah. I was trying to trick you, but because yeah, Barrichello, I think his rookie season was like 92 or maybe 93. I think he started with Jordan. And yeah, he was Michael Schumacher's teammate at Ferrari. And yeah, he had 322 race entries and Michael Schumacher had 306.
Hmm,
So yeah,
too close.
yeah, getting close. Next question is who has more race entries? Sergio Perez or Yano Trulli?
Arno Truly. Okay, he was at Toyota. I don't know what he did before. Perez has been around for a while, mostly at the Force India Racing Point teams. Um, I'm gonna go Perez because I don't really know much about Truly, and the seasons are a lot longer now than they used to be.
So Sergio Perez was incorrect. So Yano Trulli, he had 252 race entries, and Perez had 247. So I think Trulli, he started with like, I think it was Minardi in the 90s. I don't remember which year it was, but he started with Minardi, and then yeah, he raced with Toyota, had that famous moment in Brazil in 2008, and then I think he raced until like 2012 or something, 2012, 2013, that time. So a lot of races, and he just kind of edged out Perez, although Perez will
Perez
probably
will
be, yeah,
pass him by the end of the season.
right, because there's only a 5 race difference between the two. So
Yeah.
yeah, kind of
All
tricky,
right.
but
Yeah.
all right. So your last question is, who has entered more races, Jenson Button or Sebastian Vettel?
Button or Sebastian. Um, Button. Let's see. Vettel was a rookie in 2008, and I don't know when Button came in, but I know he wasn't. He was pretty young in that same year. Um, it's. I'm gonna say it's. I feel like it's got to be Vettel, right? Because they were kind of the top two drivers for a couple of those years when Vettel won, and then Button. I don't really know what he did after. I don't even know if he was racing once Mercedes was dominant. So I'm gonna say it's Vettel.
Sebastian Vettel was incorrect, Charlie.
What?
So yeah, Jenson Button had like 300 race or 309 race starts, and Vettel had 300. I think Button actually raced into 2017, so a very long time. Yeah, I know, surprising, but after he won the world
When
championship, huh?
when did he start? What was
That's a
his
good.
rookie year?
I don't even remember. Let me look it up. 2000.
Wow.
Yeah, and then he raced until, excuse me, 2017 with McLaren. Yeah, so
Good career.
sorry.
Champion. Good
Yeah,
career.
yeah, won world championship with Braun, I think.
Yeah.
I think if Honda didn't sell that team, I think Honda sold it to Braun, and then Braun sold it to Mercedes. So
Yeah.
Honda would have won a couple more championships. But yeah, kind of fell off there, Charlie. What happened? Started 2-0.
Yeah, I don't know.
Only split the series.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
All
So
right. So I've got a little bit of a different type of questions for you. They're all kind of the same question, but there's going to be one for each team. And that question is going to be um, since 2010, which was when the current point system was added, what was each team on the grid's best season in terms of points? So for most of the teams, it's just a linear. It's like Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Williams. But some of the other teams have done a little bit of changing. So Aston Martin includes Force India and Racing Point.
mhm.
Alpine includes Lotus, Renault, and Alpine. Um, or at least it includes Lotus when there wasn't a Renault.
Wait, what do you mean by like since 2010? Like who has
It's like
more?
what since 2010, which for each team, what year was their best year?
Oh, so like points wise.
Yeah, and then Haas obviously
Okay,
Hasn't
that's
been around
cool.
very long. Alfa Romeo is just Sauber
All right.
slash Alfa Romeo, and then Alpha Tauri has basically been the same thing. So,
So
so we can
yeah.
start off. Let's start off with Alpha Tauri. They're in last right now. So, what is Alpha Tauri or Toro Rosso's best season since 2010
I
in
want to
terms
say
of points?
it's maybe 2020 because of Gasly's win there. But I mean, Kvyat had Vettel also won in 2008, so
Since 2010.
I right. I was thinking. Kvyat had a podium in Germany 2019. Where else did it? It had a podium last year. No, in 2021 in Baku.
Mhm.
2020. I don't even remember. 2021, they were very good though at the preseason, but they kind of fell off. Um, I don't know. I'm just gonna go with 2020 just for fun.
The answer was 2021.
Bruh.
Pretty comfortably. 2020, there wasn't as many races, I don't think.
I'm stupid, dude.
And they were pretty good 2020, but they're very good in 2021.
How many points did they have in 21?
Let's see if I still pulled it up. It was 142,
Dang,
and
dude.
2020 it was 107.
That's a lot, actually. Yeah.
All right, moving on to Alfa Romeo slash Sauber. What is their best season since 2010?
I don't even know, dude. I don't care about all the Romeo to be honest, but I mean, they had Charles Leclerc a couple years. They also had Raikkonen. Um, I'm just gonna take a shot here. Like,
They go all the way back to 2010, the Sauber
I know.
teams. So
I don't even remember who was racing for Sauber though, but since you said that, maybe I should guess the beginning because you said it goes back to 2010. So I don't know, maybe like 2011.
another close one. It was 2012.
Oh my God.
2011 they had only 44 points. 2012 they had 126.
What happened?
Driving for Sauber was Sergio Perez and Kamui Kobayashi.
Oh, Kobayashi. Okay. I see.
They were pretty close. Only no, yeah, only 6 points between them.
All right. Fair play. Yeah, nice.
All right, Haas. Only been around a couple of years now.
Um, Pass. They did score very well in their rookie or their first race, 2016. I think Grosjean was six or something like that. But they also did very good in 2018, except their freaking tires fell off in Australia. I think in 2018 they were like fifth though, or sixth in the constructors. So I think I'm just gonna go 2018. I'm pretty confident with this one, but I should be wrong.
2018 is correct.
Okay, good.
Haas,
Yeah, that's what I
I
thought. So
believe, 93 points for fifth in the constructors. Yeah.
nice.
All right. Next up, we have Williams.
Williams. Shoot.
I was I was shocked when I saw this.
2018 they had like what Sorokin and whatever. I don't think it was like recent though. Except Russell did. He took second in that freaking weird ass Belgian Grand Prix 2021. Williams is another team I don't even really remember them performing that good. Um, 2017. I don't remember. maybe 2014 because they were pretty strong during that time too, right? So maybe 2014 or 2015. I'm just gonna go 2014 because I don't really remember them being that good otherwise.
2014 is correct.
Seriously?
320 points
Really?
for third place, ahead of Ferrari, ahead of McLaren.
That's crazy.
They had Bottas, who got fourth in the Drivers' Championship.
Wait, who won 20, it was Mercedes though, not McLaren.
Mercedes won, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Um, Bottas and Felipe Massa.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what I thought because I didn't remember them being good like recently, so it had to be back then.
Yeah.
And it's either 2014 or 15, which it was 14. So yeah, nice.
We got next. We got the Alpine Renault of this era.
Um, of since 2010, right?
Yes.
They were good. So they had Ricardo in 2019, and then I think the next year after that they're good 2020. But then again, 2020 was that like super weird abbreviated race or abbreviated season thing. 2010 they were good too. I think they had was it Petrov or something like that? Vitaly from Russia. I think they were six in Abu Dhabi, whatever. But so I think 2021 or sorry 2020 they I just don't remember if they would have done better in 2021. Probably not though. So it includes Alpine, right?
It includes Alpine, it includes Lotus, it includes Renault.
Okay. Oh, it includes Lotus too. Lotus, they were good in 2012, weren't they? They're like the second best team. So actually, I think it's probably more like 2012 or maybe 2013. 2012, I think Grosjean. Yeah, 2012, whatever.
2012 Lotus got 303 points, but in 2013 they had 315.
Bruh, this game is
Just
rigged.
barely, just barely.
This game is so rigged,
They
dude.
had Raikkonen and Grosjean. Yeah.
All right, fair play. Cool enough.
McLaren.
McLaren. Okay, so excuse me. They were good during they were competing with Vettel. No, was it 2010 that it was went down to the wire with Lewis? I think it was. 2011, like everyone was bad in 2011 except for Red Bull. I think it was that year where it was just they were just insane. So I don't think it was then. I don't think it was any of the recent years either. So actually, let me think. I think McLaren were good though, actually. So I don't freaking remember. I'm just gonna go 2010 because I think like I don't I don't think they were good in 2011. I think it was a big gap between them and Red Bull, but there was Ferrari too, so whatever. 2010.
2010, very famous season. Closeness, but it was not 2010. It was 2011.
Oh my God.
McLaren 497 points.
Really?
Yeah, Jenson Button second in the drivers' championship, um, beating Hamilton pretty comfortably.
All right, whatever. Good enough.
We got
That was
Ferrari.
close enough.
Ferrari.
Ooh, Ferrari. 2010. I mean, they were good last in 2028, or what am I saying? 2028. I'm saying 2022. I was thinking about 2018 too,
Gonna be
because
that
they're
long till they win a championship.
yeah. They're also good in 2010 too, but then Massa was kind of trash. They had Alonso, so Leclerc. They kind of fell off last year. So I'm just gonna go 2018 because they had Vettel, Raikkonen. They're contending for the championship closer than they did this year. Let's go with 2018.
Well,
And
it
you're
appears I have written this down wrong in my notes. 2018 is correct. I wrote down 2022 though.
oh, okay.
So good job. Better than me.
Nice.
And three more Aston Martin.
Aston Martin. Is
This
there
this includes this year so
this
far,
includes this
but
year?
only half the races because it is this year is cool is top like
Is
could
it so
is
Aston
close to the
Martin
top.
Aston Martin came wait, this year is close to the top, so it's not the top.
Well, it might be the top. I don't know.
Okay.
It's up for
So
you to decide.
is it the last 3 years Aston Martin were in the sport since 2021? Or does it
Yeah, then
include
there
another
was
team?
Racing Point until Racing Point started in 2019.
Right, and then there was Force India
They were
before that.
around for 2 years, and then before that, it was just Force India.
Um, so Racing Point. So they were good in 2020 because back or Perez won and Secure or whatever that race is called. Um, and then you said it includes Force India too, right?
Yes.
They were good in 2018 as well, but then they got sold in 2018, so I think like it doesn't actually count. They became Racing Point that year. So just because of that, I think that kind of messes it up. So I know I went with 2020 earlier and it was wrong, but yeah, let's just go 2020 again for Racing Point.
2020 Racing Point had 195 points. So far in 2023, they have
Are
196.
you kidding me? No. Really?
Yep.
Oh my God, dude.
So, yep, it is
Season.
this year. It's their best season
Dude,
to
this
date.
game is so ridiculous. I don't
All right, last ones. Mercedes.
oh my.
What was
Um
Mercedes' best year? Hmm,
hmm.
most
20
dominant.
29. I feel like it's well, I'm looking for a year where they were both like super good. So like maybe Hamilton and Rosberg. That was 2014 through 2016 when they're really winning like good. So 2019 they're also super strong too, but I'm just gonna go 2016 because we know like the championship went down to the wire with them, and 2019 like I mean Bottas he had kind of weird races as well. Max took some off of him, so maybe 2016 by a hair, but I'm not too confident about that.
Yes, 2016 is correct.
All right, cool. That's what I
And
thought.
Red Bull.
Ooh, Red Bull. I should notice, but should get it wrong. But so they were good since 2010. They did 2011 was the year they kept like winning, obviously. 2013, another year they kept winning. It might have been 2022 because of the sprints and all of this stuff. That might have, and the fact that they were like 1-2 a lot of the time, Max winning like basically a lot of the races that season. So it's either 2011, 2013, or 2022. I'm gonna go with 2022 just because of all the sprints and all of that stuff. Max winning, Perez not being like completely off the pace. He did struggle a bit, but probably 2022. And I think this year they have a decent chance of beating whatever their record is, just of how dominant that car is.
I think so. Yeah, 2022 by over 100 points.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Um, to 2011 was the closest. So
What was
you did
my
pretty
what
good on
was my
that.
record
You
at
got Red Bull, you got Mercedes, you got
pass?
Ferrari, you got um, Williams, Haas. Didn't get the first two.
Uh-huh.
I don't think you got McLaren either.
I
or
don't think I
Alpine.
did. Yeah.
So you got half correct,
All right.
which is pretty good.
Yeah, it's so stupid
Probably
because
better than
I
I
was
did.
like
And the
one
other
year.
ones you were off by like 1 year.
Dude, that was so ridiculous, dude. I don't know why I said like or 2020 with Toro Rosso and AlphaTauri. That is very frustrating because I'm a big fan of them, but it is what it is. Good
Yeah.
result anyway. Yeah, so fair
All
play. That
right.
was a really fun game. I mean, we should do that. Should figure out
We
another.
could you could do it with drivers. You can do it with whatever. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. We will be back for our big mid-season review in a week or so, probably, and we may have a couple guests on. That still remains to be seen. But yeah, we got a good thing going into the second half of the season, and thank you guys for listening. We will see you next week.
Thank you guys. Bye.